Hello everybody, and hello to the parents of our first year students. Unfortunately this year we cannot have you in to our first year parent information evening, so instead I'm having a go at making a video. I'm working from home here, as you can see, and my aim here is to explain what we call our roadmap of assessment, which is basically just a kind of a layout of all the assessments that your child goes through in junior cycle here in Grange Community College. And then also I'm going to give information on the CAT4, which is a cognitive ability test that your child is sitting in December 2020, this month. And I'll give you a little bit of information about receiving the results from that abilities test as well. So here we have our roadmap of assessment for Grange Community College, and we're looking at year 1 of junior cycle, which your child is in. So you can just see the first 2 lines of this just cover the fact that your child did an entrance exam with us, where their literacy, their numeracy, and their Irish was tested, if they do Irish. Then in September, the primary passports, really that's just any necessary information that comes from primary schools, basically to enable us to support your child in the transition from primary school to secondary school. So here we are now on the 3rd line. You see December 1st. Usually we have, for first year's parents, we would have an information evening where we get to meet you, but unfortunately this year, obviously that's not happening, and this video is trying to make up for that in some small way. Then December 1st, in December first year, every child does a CAT4 assessment, and that's what I'm going to explain now in a moment. In January, a report will be sent to you then following this assessment. Okay, then in January to April, so after Christmas, we will begin academic monitoring. So your child will be assessed monthly in each of their subjects, and we just keep an eye on those grades, just, I suppose, making sure that everybody is working to the best of their ability, and then that allows us to see if maybe somebody is not, we can offer support and guidance around that. Then in May of first year, we do a survey with all first year students, and this is called the pupil's attitude to self and school. Just like the CAT4 assessment is part of the December Christmas exams, then the PASS, or the pupil attitude to self and school, becomes a part of the summer assessment. And this is just I think it's 50 questions, and it basically, its aim is to kind of catch anyone who's maybe feeling, their attitude towards themselves is quite poor, or if their attitude to school is deteriorating. This is where we try to catch that. So then when your child comes back in second year, we kind of have a good idea of how they felt about themselves and school at the end of their first year. And say if anybody did score low in that, then it allows us to check in with that child and see what supports we can offer, I suppose, to maybe improve the attitude to self or school. Okay, so we see on year 2, then we have more academic monitoring. So in second year, this is from September to November. Then November to March, that's when classroom-based assessments, that's when they happen, and they're reported on in June. December of second year, you've got their main kind of Christmas assessments. And then in May of second year, we do a follow-up NGRT and numeracy test during the summer assessment. So this is then from the entrance assessment when they were in 6th class. We've kind of tested their attainment levels then. And at the end of second year, then we test those attainment levels again to see, and that should have increased then a bit, obviously, from 6th class to second year. And we just keep an eye on that. And again, if that didn't happen, again, it's about trying to intervene there with the necessary supports, to, I suppose, allow your child to reach their full potential. Then in year 3, we have September to December. You've got the classroom-based assessments. That's the second round of those. and they are reported on in January. December of third year, then we've got study skills seminar, so that has happened for our third years now at the moment. And then we've got a Christmas assessment, and the junior cycle assessment tasks are completed then as well. January to February of third year, you've got the junior cycle mock examinations, which gives students, I suppose, just a chance to kind of get a real feel for what those state exams, their first state exams, will be like. And then in June of third year, we have their actual junior cycle exams. And when they come back in transition year then for September, they get a results analysis of their whole junior cycle. Now I'm going to explain what the CAT4 is and how you will receive the results. So the CAT4 stands for Cognitive Ability Test, and the 4 means that it is in its 4th edition. Why do we use cognitive ability tests in school? Well, as you know, your child will be tested in their subjects on a regular basis, and at the end of each term, we have in December and May, we kind of have their bigger assessments that aim to measure what they have learned in a subject area. Whereas the CAT4, a cognitive ability test, aims to measure how your child learns. So this will allow us to challenge your child if they have a higher ability in a certain area, and it will also allow us to support your child in the right way if they had a lower ability in an area. So there are 4 areas that we will assess, and these are called batteries. So students are given 4 types of tests or batteries which assess how they think about tasks and solve problems. The first one is called verbal reasoning, and I'm going to give I'm just going to give a little explanation of each battery and then some examples of what your child will actually see when sitting the test. So a large part of education is presented through language using words. So assessing this ability helps us to understand a student's general level of attainment. So here we see an example. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys do this. So we have the verbal reasoning battery, and this is basically thinking with words. So at the top right hand corner, we see 3 words: rain, fog, and sunshine. And then we've got 5 words underneath, and your child has to now figure out which word will come next in that sequence, or that will match those words. So think about it for a little while: rain, fog, and sunshine. So what do you think? Okay, so rain, fog, and sunshine. After thinking for a little while, we might say, okay, they're types of weather. So then we're looking for another type of weather, and the only one there in that list is snow. So we know the answer is snow. And then for the second example, we have this a little bit different. It's kind of the relationship between the words. So carpet is to floor, as curtain is to what? Window, shade, hang, drapes, or cloth. And as we know, a carpet covers a floor, and then a curtain will cover a window. And here we just have a little bit of more of an explanation. So we see that the first example that we did is called verbal classification, and the second example that we did was verbal analogies, and that's there to pause and read if you'd like. I'll keep moving. So the second battery that we test your child on is quantitative reasoning. And this, in other words, the numeracy, or working with numbers and thinking in numbers. So next to verbal reasoning, the ability to work with numbers is one of the most frequently required capabilities in education. Fields such as mathematics, science, geography, and economics make considerable demands on students' quantitative abilities. Quantitative or numerical reasoning battery, thinking with numbers. Okay, so in our first example, I'm going to challenge you here again on this one. So 1 going to 2, and then we have 5 that turns into 10, and then 4 will turn into what if they follow the same rules. And we can see after a little bit of thinking that the numbers are doubling each time. So I think the answer is going to be 8. So 4 will turn into 8. The second one is a little bit more difficult. I'll give you a moment to figure it out yourself. And we can see that 18 is the first number, our third number is 17, and our fifth number is 16. So we see that they're descending by 1 each time. So then it looks like our seventh number is going to be 15, and that would be the right answer. Okay. And if I sound confident, it's because I've given this presentation a few times. So the first one we see, that's called number analogies. And the second one we test on is called number series. And again, you can just pause if you'd like to read that little bit more information. Okay, our third battery is the non-verbal reasoning. This battery assesses the ability to think and reason with non-verbal material. It helps us to assess students' general cognitive ability by looking at how they solve problems involving shapes. So again, we have our first two batteries, which are verbal and quantitative or numerical. And a lot of school is done through language and numbers. But that's not everything. And we understand that some students might have difficulty with language, or they might have difficulty with numbers. And then this third battery then really gives us a chance, if there was a low ability in either of those areas, and then they actually had a high non-verbal, we saw high non-verbal reasoning, we might know that there's actually, and that can help us to catch sometimes if a student has difficulty with language or with numbers. So let's see what a non-verbal reasoning battery looks like. So this is thinking with shapes. And we see in the top right-hand corner, so this is a little more difficult to explain. I'm just going to read that. 3 designs are presented which are similar in some way or ways. From a selection of 5 possible answers, the student must identify a 4th design with similar properties. So we could see they've chosen the answer E. And we'll see the answer is E because it is the only answer choice that is a striped semicircle like the first 3 figures. Okay, so yeah, when we look at that, it makes sense that that's the next one that would match those or come in the sequence. Then down to the arrows, design, and this is figure matrices. Designs are presented in a grid with 1 empty square, and from a selection of 5 possible answers, the student must identify the missing design. So the answer here is C, because in the top pair, 1 arrow up goes to 2 arrows up. So in the second pair, 1 arrow down must go to 2 arrows down, which makes sense. And the last one then is spatial ability. So this is the 4th battery. And again, just like not the non-verbal reasoning, this battery assesses the ability to think and reason with non-verbal material, but involves spatial awareness. It helps us to assess students' ability to solve problems involving shapes and space. So a lot of subjects with a practical element would maybe look up your a student's spatial ability. And again, if they could challenge them if the spatial ability is high and offer more support if the spatial ability was low. Here we just see what it's like, the battery of thinking with shape and space. So let's look at this top one. It's a little, and I suppose this just shows that it's not the easiest of tests to be completing. We see a series of diagrams shows a square being folded repeatedly and then punched through with holes. From a selection of 5 possible answers, the student must identify how the paper will appear when unfolded. The answer here is D. The hole is punched through both layers of paper. So as it is unfolded, the holes will be a mirror image of each other, with the crease being the mirror line. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, and you can just maybe pause it if you need a bit more time to figure that one out and look at it. Then the next example, we see figure recognition. And again, you see the shape at the bottom right. You're looking, the student, as it explains there, the student will be looking for the image where that shape fits into exactly, and that is E, as it is the only one where the shape at the bottom there actually kind of slots into E there. And again, you can just pause that if you'd like to read the bit on figure recognition. Okay, so that is our 4 batteries. And here now we have, I want to show you what you will receive in the individual report for parents, and we'll post this out by February when we get the results. It could be the end of January. So this is what you'll receive in the post. Again, this is just a sample student, and I just put the abilities in there so we could see. I want to just talk a little about a few things here. We see the profile word, and then we see the 4 batteries listed: verbal, quantitative, non-verbal, and spatial. What we have in the yellow is what we call average. And now I just want to address that word, because sometimes if somebody told me I was average at something, I might be a little bit insulted. But when it comes to cognitive ability tests, the vast majority of us will just fall into an average range, okay, when compared with our peers the same age, basically. What we're often looking for in the ability tests is, if maybe, as I said, if there's a very high ability, we're looking to maybe challenge that child in that ability. And if there was a low ability, we're looking to offer support to that child so that they don't feel like they're falling behind in any subjects. And I suppose at this point, I really want to emphasize how we use these reports. So you'll receive this report, which is a parent report, and then our teachers also receive a report which kind of gives a lot of advice on how best to kind of cater their classes for your child specifically. But what we really want to emphasize is that we never use these reports or the results of these reports to judge anyone. All it is a snapshot in time. So like we've just looked at the 4 the examples from the different tests that they'll complete. I mean, that it's a 3-hour kind of over the stint of 2.5 hours to 3 hours. And your child will give their best go at it. Now, does that mean we should be kind of weighing or judging children just based on how they did in a 2.5-hour assessment? Absolutely not. This report is just to kind of inform us, and as I use that word, kind of catch maybe some areas, so if somebody had a very low verbal ability, but then they might have a very high non-verbal ability. Well, then that would say, just for example, that might show that actually it's just thinking in language that's the problem. It's not thinking overall, because if their non-verbal ability was very high, then that would show that their thinking skills might be fine. It's just if the verbal ability was low, then we might go, okay, there might be something going on there with language, and we could maybe test for dyslexia. Right, so that's just an example of how we could use these tests. So let's say if your child didn't score low in an ability, again, that is not something that is used to kind of demean your child or to look down upon them. Not at all. It's just the opposite. In fact, we want every child here in Grange Community College to reach their full potential, and by finding out everybody's ability, that is then we can actually kind of set targets and we can aim for success, because it's important that everybody feels success. And say, like me, I'm not good with numbers, not good numerically. So in school, if my school knows that I'm not great with numbers, then that means maybe my math teacher knows that 60% in an exam is a really good result for me, instead of just pushing everybody for the 90% and the 100%. I mean, because we just know that that's unrealistic. So basically this allows just us to kind of cater our education towards your child's exact abilities, and to determine what success looks like for them. Okay, so in the individual report for parents as well, just the last sentence at the bottom I'll read. This will be accompanied by written recommendations to help improve your understanding of your child's learning preference, with suggestions for how to offer support at home. And this is really important, I think, to have a look at these, because it's very kind of practical advice and things that you can do at home to, I suppose, to support your child at home and their learning at home. As I said, we as teachers receive a report as well with kind of, specific recommendations as well on how to best support your child in their abilities. Okay, so look, thank you very much. That is the end of the presentation. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you all at some time soon. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.